Well, they did say there will be infinite versions of Kang coming. Behold, the multi-chrome Kang is here. Last week, I made a mini display for my classic Loki figure. It's a very cute display, and it's perfect for Loki variants. Check it out if you're interested. Today, I'm gonna experiment with Kang. Oh, I noticed that they have the Avengers logo at the top here instead of the Ant-Man logo. Interesting. Anyway, this figure looks awesome. The sculpt is very screen accurate. There's so much molded details. Actually, the rest of the Quantumania wave is pretty decent as well. Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Cassie all look very well made. Too bad the movie is so underwhelming. Let's deconstruct this figure. There's an FAQ on the paint and brushes I use in the description box below. I've had this Kang figure for quite a while. The figure is totally fine the way it is. The overall colors and paintwork seem pretty decent. I don't see anything wrong with it. The only minor thing I noticed is that they didn't use the same nice metallic purple paint on the helmet, the chest piece, and the belt. The purple plastic looks good. They did a great job matching it to the purple metallic paint. But what I remember most from the movie is how shiny metallic the armor looked. The cape is interesting. The backside has these nice shiny purple trims, but the rest of the cape looks very unpainted, especially the underside. The head is really nice. The only thing missing is the light above his forehead. Overall, this figure is pretty well made, but the armor does limit the range of motion quite a bit. Today, my main goal is to make the purple plastic look more metallic. Gotta make it look nice and shiny like the rest of the armor. So... Hello, this is Ken. I like making things. I like making things out of paper, and I like making things cooler. Especially my figures. Sometimes figures don't look all that screen accurate. All they need is a bit of touch up here and there to unleash the hidden potential. I also love using everyday tools and materials to recreate iconic scenes from my figures, so they can shine on my display. Subscribe to my channel and join my DIY adventure as I ask myself the same question every week. Can I make it? Not sure if this is picking up on camera, but you can tell that this area here is made out of plastic. It doesn't have that same metallic sheen like the rest of the armor. It is a very minor thing, but I truly believe that this figure will look much better if I can get the purple plastic to look metallic. However, I don't have any purple metallic paint, and I don't think mixing purple and silver together will get me the color I want. It won't be reflective enough. That said, I have used mica powder before to create this super high shine metallic effect. The first time I used it was to create the Spider-Verse portal. It went okay. The second time I used it on the multiverse shattering effect for my No Way Home display. That one turned out gorgeous. It was vibrant and shiny. I want to see if I can use mica powder on figures. If so, it may be a game changer. But from my experience, mica powder works best on tacky surfaces. UV resin is a good medium for that, but I'm not going to use it here. UV resin is too thick and it's quite challenging to do precise strokes. Instead, I'm going to use gloss medium. When you add gloss medium to acrylic paint, it's going to give you a glossy finish. I personally find that adding the glossy varnish on top of acrylic paint produces better results, but this is not the reason why I'm using gloss medium here. The reason why I'm using this is because the medium dries quite slowly and dries a bit sticky, which is perfect because then the mica powder can adhere to it. I'm going to apply this all over the purple areas, even the areas with the purple metallic paint. That way I can rub the mica powder on these areas and I can get a consistent finish. Alright, it's been around 20 to 30 minutes. Let's add the mica powder. This one has this blue-purple shift. It's gonna look so good. I'm gonna use this applicator to rub the powder on. Let's try it on the back. Okay, I'm committed. I'm gonna do the rest of the figure and decide what to do then. Let me dust the loose powder off and have a look. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, it's not fine. That is not what I was going for at all. The powder didn't have that green shift in the jar. What happened? Okay, let me try this bluer mica powder. Maybe I can still save this. Please work, please work, please work. Ah, the green shift is fading away. It looks the same. I think what happened was that the gloss medium layer is no longer sticky, so the bluer powder wasn't really sticking. Or maybe they just all have this green shift. Okay, plan B. I'm gonna add a thin layer of glossy purple over it to add a slight purple hue while keeping the metallic sheen. Oh no, something is happening. The mica powder is loose again? I'm actually wiping off the mica powder. Maybe this is a good thing. Okay, I'm gonna try and remove the mica powder this way. It's been another 20 to 30 minutes. The green hue is mostly gone. The color looks a bit better, but it still doesn't look right. I'm gonna try this one more time. But before I do that, let me add a bit more shine by adding a thin coat of glossy varnish. Okay, that melted the rest of the mica powder. It's pretty much back to square one. Except for the grooves. The mica powder is still stuck there, and now it has this really cool Tron effect. Okay, attempt number 3. Starting with a layer of glossy purple to make the surface sticky again. And I'm also gonna focus on the grooves to get rid of the rest of the mica powder. Alright, this time I'm rubbing a thin layer of the bluer mica powder. I just want it to be metallic, and keep the color shifting to the minimum. Done! The metallic sheen looks good, but I can still see a bit of that color shift. I need to move on before I start going crazy. Let me distract myself and work on the green parts. The green they used looks a bit dull. I'm gonna rub a thin layer of this lighter green color over them. The paint should stick to the raised areas, thus bringing out the molded details. And for the cape, let me just make it a shade lighter. Wait a sec. Are you seeing this? Let me try it over here. Ooh, this is pretty cool. When I apply the paint, the brush pushes the paint into the molded patterns while picking up the paint on a flatter surface. It makes it look like the pattern is glowing. Ooh, what if I apply a thicker layer of paint over the entire area and then use my finger to wipe out the paint while it's still wet? That worked! Look at that glowing effect. This is so cool. I can do this all day. Except, I don't have all day. Let me add a bit more highlights to make the cape look even more fabric-like. Onto the underside. This side looks very boring. I wish they did the patterns on this side as well. Let me first add a thin coat of paint over it. This will act as a base layer for the shading color. Now I'm going to use the brown as my shading color to give the cape a bit more dimension. Next, let me add a bit more shine to the green armor. Right now it's too matte, but Kang's armor is quite glossy in the movie. I don't want the green to be too glossy. In my opinion, figures look best when there are multiple finishes on it. I want Kang to have a metallic purple and a semi-glossy green finish. And from my experience, the matte varnish gives off this rubbery shine that will go well here. This will also seal the paint to minimize paint rub. Onto the head. The helmet is missing that forehead light. The two lights on the side are also quite faded, probably due to all the mica powder. So let me add them back in and make them brighter with the white. I wonder what Kang does with the lights. Maybe he likes reading at night. I mean, it's pretty handy to have lights built in on his helmet. The objects in front of his face will always be illuminated. Speaking of illuminated, I'm gonna add a bit of blue to the lights to make them look more like glowing lights and not just 3 white stripes. Alright, the figure looks pretty good. I'm still a bit worried about the mica powder melting due to the moisture. So, I'm gonna finally try a finishing spray. I only want to spray on the upper torso and head area, where the mica powder is. And unfortunately, the only spray I have is this matte spray. A glossy spray would have been better here, but it's okay. I'm curious to see how the matte spray performs. The upper torso now has this frosted metal look to it. Interesting. I also added a bit of purple on the underside of this cape, and around the edges on the backside too. Now that the mica powder is sealed and locked in with the spray, I can finally add the glossy varnish to give it that high shine. And this time I shouldn't be wiping off the mica powder. This better work this time, or I'm gonna end the multiversal war myself. Speaking of sealing the paint, I normally don't use a finishing spray because I'm lazy. Most of the time my customs have multiple finishes on them. So if I were to use a glossy or matte spray, I would have to tape up certain parts to block the spray. Another reason is because I don't want to breathe in the fume. This room here has no ventilation, and I normally paint late at night. So if I were to spray something, I would have to wait till the next day. I can do this all night, but not all day. Alright, the purple parts are all nice and shiny now, but I'm still not satisfied. I actually really like the Tron effect from earlier where all the molded details were highlighted by the mica powder, but that's not screen accurate, so I'm going to use black instead. I'm using a damp brush here so the black can seep into the crevices. And because the surface is double sealed with the spray and the glossy varnish, I don't have to worry about ruining the purple at all. If I make a mistake, I can easily wipe it off and the purple will be unaffected. Kudos to Hasbro. This figure is sculpted really well. I believe this figure is made out of all original parts, and there's so much molded details everywhere, except for the underside of the cape. I just want to bring out all the details with the black. And one final coat of glossy varnish over the purple. This figure didn't come with any cool accessories, but it did come with this hand. There should be a sacred timeline on this hand. There are 2 effect pieces I want to make with this shrink plastic. The sacred timeline ring he showed Janet, and the floating disc platform he used in the movie. The shrink plastic shrinks roughly by half, but I'm not certain, so I'm going to cut out a couple of rings at various sizes and use the one that looks best. And I'm going to use a Sharpie to color them. Here's what the platform looks like after it has shrunk. It's a bit too translucent. Let me use this deeper blue marker to make it more opaque. It's kinda cloudy looking in the movie. Alright, that looks pretty good. It's not fully opaque. It's still somewhat translucent, and the coolest thing is that it kinda gives off this blue glow. It would be really lame to just leave it like that and have Kang stand on a non-floating platform. Gotta make it float somehow. I got these smaller circle pieces here. I'm gonna stack them up and use them as support. Like this. I'm gonna use UV resin to glue them all together. Super glue will probably work as well, but I prefer using UV resin as my glue because it doesn't activate until I shine the UV light on it. That said, I have to be careful when it comes to using UV resin. I do not want to make skin contact with uncured UV resin. The liquid is quite sticky and difficult to wash off, and since it's clear, it's hard to tell if it's on my skin. It is very fun to use, But if you are using UV resin, please be careful and never touch uncured resin with your bare skin. As for the ring, I'm just gonna go over it with a lighter blue marker to make it more blue. Okay, I'm finally done. That felt like days, but I did it. The purple definitely looks shinier and is consistent from top to bottom. My favorite part is the cape. It looks so cool now. The overall changes aren't drastic, but that's because the original figure is pretty good to begin with. But look at that purple. It's so shiny now and it no longer color shifts. I don't know if it's because they're melted when I apply the varnish, but there's still this metallic sheen, not just a glossy shine. You can see the little metallic specks all over the purple. That said, I don't know if I'll continue using mica powder on figures. It just seems like taking extra steps. Maybe I should just get metallic paint. That'll make things a lot easier. The cape looks stunning. I just wish there's something similar on the underside as well. What do you think? Do you like what I've done? I really thought I ruined this Kang figure, like how they ruined him in Quantumania. Kidding. Or am I? Anyway, somehow I managed to save it. After multiple tries, that is. But I'm not complaining. It turned out the way I wanted. The ring and the floating disc also helped elevate this figure. Oh, and speaking of elevated, He Who Remains head doesn't work on Kang. Boo. I guess Kangs can't coexist after all. I learned a few new things today. Like mica powder doesn't go well with gloss medium or varnish. The matte spray is pretty cool. I would use it again on a figure that's all matte. But I'll probably stick with using varnishes if the figure has multiple finishes. I'm too lazy to disassemble the figure and tape things up. The paint and wipe technique I did on the cape was very cool. I want to do that more. Alright, let's end this for the photo shoot. Due to the hindered range of motion, there's only so many poses I can do. But the good thing is, this figure looks awesome, even with basic poses. There's this presence and aura to Kang. They totally captured Jonathan Major's likeness. I wish they provided a few more accessories, like an amassed head that fits, or energy effects. They could have easily added a ring on this hand, kinda like the magic effects on Doctor Strange and Wong. But oh well. The floating disc turned out really nice too. I love the way it illuminates the surface underneath. The support isn't exactly hidden, but at least it's not distracting, so I think it kinda works. Give it a like if you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe to see more content like this. It is almost Halloween. My next video is gonna fit the spooky vibe, so stay tuned for that. And until then, stay inspired and I'll see you next week. I can make it, so can you.